My name is Irma Wani Othman from Universiti Malaysia Sabah. This paper established discussion on the relevance of knowledge of nationhood in Malaysian studies courses as a conveyance for national unity identity and the integration of university students' self-identity post-pandemic COVID-19 era. This paper debates the relevance of knowledge of nationhood as a conveyance for national unity identity and integration of university students' self-identity in addressing the issues and challenges of the COVID-19 post-pandemic era. In dissecting the significance of university students' understanding of the Malaysian Studies course, the thrust of this discussion perspective works on the two-pronged objectives of, first, identifying the relevance of national unity identity issues of the younger generation, and second, examining the challenges of applying national principles as self-identity integration of university students. The synthesis of the discussion was also embroidered on the nurturing of the national language in society and the issue of compliance with the country's constitution and laws. The qualitative approach utilizes secondary data content analysis methods, namely the results of research in journals, reports, books, and online news sources. The results of the study show that the course education of the nature of Malaysian studies is a strong medium that can help understand the knowledge of nationhood and foster the retention of self-identity among students. The element of integration is also argued to place the relevance of university students to know the origin of a national identity and to avoid being influenced by external negative cultures. Naturally, each individual learns norms, values, and habits through socialization agents such as family, education, government and peers. Therefore, in the context of the relevance of learning and teaching elements that contain aspects of Malaysian studies, understanding the knowledge of nationhood is a critical agenda for the future of the country, where the formation of national identity must be inculcated in every student to strengthen national unity. The deterioration of self-identity among the younger generation is not only from the attitude of ignorant thinking, but also stems from the attitude of a handful of people to spread untrue and false information to undermine the harmony of the younger generation about self-identity. Therefore, the preservation of self-identity among the younger generation is a priority for all parties in maintaining unity in society and the country. What is closely related to self-identity is integration, where it is one of the fields in maintaining the self-identity of the younger generation in strengthening national unity. Integration also means the unification of a group of people of different backgrounds, regardless of race, ethnicity, and religion, into a bond of identity that combines the values of common good. Integration also serves to unite community groups through a common identity. This is said so because racial unity is the backbone of the country in ensuring the independence of a sovereign country can be achieved through time. In the context of the relevance of teaching and learning elements in Malaysian studies, understanding the knowledge of nationhood is an important agenda in the formation of national identity and should be inculcated in every Malaysian society from an early age to strengthen national unity. National identity as a conveyance for strengthening university student unity. In the context of the relevance of the knowledge of nationhood sown among the younger generation, understanding of national history is an important agenda in the formation of national identity and should be inculcated in every Malaysian society from an early age to strengthen national unity. Among the main role of Malaysian studies courses offered at universities is associated with the important role of the knowledge of nationhood content for the formation of national identity is to provide understanding to the younger generation related to national sacrifices, especially matters related to national independence. This is important because an understanding of history of the country can shape the personality of the younger generation. This matter will also lead to the concern of university students as the backbone of the country towards their responsibilities to the nation and development of Malaysia. Therefore, the younger generation will be more open to work together in materializing the country's goals. National identity and significance of understanding the knowledge of nationhood and Malaysian studies among the young generation are significant in several aspects, such as first, Education is capable in shaping national identity, such as establishment of vision schools to form a national identity among students. Education is also capable in shaping national identity as it can bridge the gap between multiracial societies. Education is a national system that meets the needs of growth or development from economic, social, and political aspects. Secondly, elevate the Malay language in education through the educational program, such as dignifying the Malay language, strengthening the English language. This program aims to balance the use of both languages so that there is no bias issue that students can master one language only. This effort allows students to not only rely on the use of one language but also often use their mother tongue in communication in daily life. Thirdly, cultivate national identity by applying the slogan "Language symbolizes the nation" and the language of the nation's soul in the education system. The creation of this slogan is one of the slogans that is applied in the education system to increase the spirit of patriotism, which will enable students to hold fast to the national language. This slogan can also educate the students to elevate the Malay language as an intellectual language, language of knowledge and language of philosophy. Fourthly, education cultivating national identity in the use of Malay language through science and mathematics subjects that are changed to Malay language from the use of English. This can illustrate that Malay language can also be the language of knowledge in various streams, that is, Malay language also has the appropriate words in those streams. Teaching in Malay language can also facilitate the learning process and be able to speed up students' understanding of the subjects presented. The use of Malay language in the subjects of science and mathematics also allows students to know the diverse vocabulary that can be used in daily life, which can also increase the growth of the use of Malay language in the communication system. Issues of cultivating the national language in society. The national language of Malaysia is Malay, which is also known as the official language. The national language is a matter that cannot be disputed in terms of its function or role. Malay language as the official language is clearly recorded in Article 152 of the Federal Constitution, which is the supreme law of Malaysia. Several functions of national language are clearly seen as first, being the medium of communication to unite a society. At the same time, this matter will lead to the country's efforts to achieve success contributed by the multiracial community agreement. Second, one of the communication tools between the Malaysian community. The national language also plays its role as the national language by being a medium of interaction between various ethnic groups that can maintain harmony in society in social terms, because the Malay language has its own decency. Language also plays a very important role in development because the national language has become one of the communication tools between the Malaysian community. Therefore, society needs to preserve the national language because the growth of the language depends on the society that uses it as a lingua franca. Third, lead to unity and brings to the interest of the country in bringing success. The national language also gives identity to the community by giving an identity that reflects the culture of Malaysia, namely the national identity. The Malay language is also a unique national identity that has the nature of being able to give beauty to the country's literature and art. The community can also recognize the Malay language as the national language because the Malay language has become the basis in various fields such as intermediate language, language of law, language of knowledge, language in matters related to religion, literary language, and so on. Fourth, an interaction medium between various ethnic groups that can maintain harmony in society in social terms. The role of the national language can convey the knowledge of history into the soul of society through grammar as well as vocabulary used in providing an understanding of the historical events of the country. Therefore, it is not appropriate for the Malaysian community not to recognize and use Malay language as the national language because it has been used since the rule of Malacca, which was not only being the main language in the archipelago but the world, which is estimated at 300 million people uses Malay language at that point of time. Finally, the cultivating tool of the spirit of unity among the Malaysian community. Therefore, misunderstandings can be avoided in society and able to interact well in achieving national success, especially in economic growth. Basically, the success achieved by the country on the factor of unity is fundamentally influenced by the factor of effective communication. This is said so because the community is able to cooperate in a conducive situation because the Malay language is a language that is easy to understand. Issues with compliance. National law institution. Acts, ordinances, and enactments are laws that have become complementary to the Constitution. As Malaysians, we should play a big role in complying with all types of laws. The law is able to make all races in Malaysia live in unity without raising more racial issues that can trigger fights between them. This is because the law is the foundation to real life, guarantee the peace of a country and the country's administrative system, and guarantee the safety and well-being of the people where there are human rights that allow freedom of speech to be used. The Constitution gazetted in Malaysia is not to burden the people or deprive the people of their rights but to ensure harmony and cooperation can be achieved among the multiracial community in Malaysia. This is because the law is the foundation to real life. Citizens are allowed to express opinions and make expressions, and the interests of all races are safeguarded by obtaining justice among all races. The challenge of implementing the national principles through the role of socialization agents. The purpose of the national principles is to further strengthen and restore racial unity in Malaysia due to the bloody events of 13 May 1969. Malaysians are said to be a disciplined nation and ready to face challenges is the key to national peace and national unity. If the national principles are not respected and underestimated, it will lead to the collapse of the country's democratic institutions. Not only that, it will also erode and destroy the meaning of the community unity value. It starts from the leader who needs to be a role model in nurturing the values of unity which is in line with compliance with the law. Thus, the national principles are used as a guide and way of life for the people of various races and ethnicities in Malaysia. Family and university students. It is related to the national principles of the country, namely good behavior and morality, which means discipline, civility, decency, and courtesy. This principle means maintaining behavior in terms of religious, racial, and cultural sensitivity in racial diversity in Malaysia. Parents are responsible for educating their children to always respect the sensitivities of a race from an early age. In community life, there are many races living in our surrounding, and parents need to encourage children to mix with other races in order to be more familiar with the existing culture and create the nature of equality. Therefore, children will have more respect for each other, which leads to racial and religious harmony. Education and university students. Education can cultivate how to embrace the national principles of the country through the subjects of civics and citizenship education, as well as moral education at every school level in primary and secondary school. The purpose is to ensure that all educators, especially students, can understand the country's national principles. Not only students but teachers also need to be concerned by giving a clearer understanding the benefits of national principles of the country. Educators should be intelligent to organize learning in a more interesting way, such as quizzes or questions and answer sessions on national principles to attract students to understand it more. Apart from academics in schools, co-curriculum activities related to the national principles of the country should also be implemented in every school and universities in Malaysia. Government and university students. The government is indeed responsible in cultivating the national principles of the country in the people in various effective ways. This is because the way the country is administered influences the community's perspective in embracing the national principles. The people need to maintain their self-identity to continue the well-being of the country, which is also the responsibility of the government. Following the national principles of the country on decency and morality, which encourages the people to always have a fair, kind, and just attitude in life. Existing issues of modernity such as social media also bring harm to society in our country. This is because there are some irresponsible citizens who deliberately create provocations in the media by touching on issues of sensitivity such as insults or incitement to hate against the institution of the king, especially amongst the youngsters, peers and university students. Children will learn to interact with peers who are like them in terms of age of experience, as well as thinking and so on. At present, the younger generation seems lacking in embracing the national principles of the country compared to the previous generation. Peers who set a good example can be emulated by an individual, such as respecting parents and friends, friendly and always maintaining good language speech, can change the behavior of the individual. The formation of a person's identity can be maintained through the people around them, where they are able to strengthen their identity without compromising what has been learned in a person. Maintaining of student self-identity. The preservation of student self-identity begins with integration that serves as an agent to ensure that the current generation recognizes the origins of a national identity and can avoid the current generation from being influenced by external cultures. However, we can see that the current generation has lost a lot of self-identity. This is because the current generation has been influenced by Western culture, for example, the life of hedonism that is often prevalent among adolescents in Malaysia. A life of hedonism means making pleasure the ultimate goal of life. This is in stark contrast to the way Malaysians are educated, especially Muslims. This is said so because the influence of this hedonism not only damages the pure values of an individual, but also destroys identity. This integration also helps in giving awareness to the generations that is quickly being carried away with Western culture. The Malaysian flag, or Jalur Gemilang, stripes of glory, is symbolic of our country's identity and sovereignty. It is sad if the Jalur Gemilang is tarnished by any party who disrespect the country and do as they please. The campaign to fly the Jalur Gemilang needs to be intensified in order to provide awareness to the community who are being neglected by foreign cultures. The spirit of flying the Jalur Gemilang needs to be nurtured from an early age in order to form a fertile identity in our generation. The Jalur Gemilang also symbolizes the loyalty of patriotism to the country, making it a close agent in maintaining the identity of the homeland. Good politics and keeping morality and integrity have a tendency in sowing unity and identity of the true child of the land. Good politics also has an ideology in defending the integrity and identity of generations from being influenced by colonial culture. The abuse of power can destroy the unity of society and the country. A series of educational changes implemented in a chaotic social environment can cripple unity and the spirit of national identity. Therefore, the provisions of the Constitution are very important in preserving the identity of the present generation. In the overall context of the discussion of this paper, the relevance of the elements of learning and teaching that contain aspects of Malaysian studies where the understanding of knowledge of nationhood is an important agenda in the formation of national identity. This needs to be inculcated in every Malaysian society from an early age to strengthen national unity is associated with the importance of the younger generation or university students in taking responsibility as a group that develops the people and the country. A strong sense of self-identity is a very important criteria for a university student to have in order to contribute to the society and the country. They must not be easily trampled by Western culture that will tarnish their own identity. Thank you.